I'd like you to try to feel this, what I say to you now. I welcome you with all my heart. I love you with all my heart. Can you feel that? I welcome you with all my heart. It's the only thing I really give. The teachings really are in the sense of our interacting presences, how our energy fields enfold and intertwine with each other. It's not about verbal teachings at all. It's about how I touch you in your heart and how you touch me. Today I'm going to be more open probably than any teacher you've ever heard about my own life and my experiences and what's leading me or has led me to a new, very different teaching. "14 months ago, 3 people stayed with me: Max, Michael, and Dia. I'd known Dia, or I have known her, for 11 years. I loved Dia for many reasons, one of which was her ability to access other worlds of experience other than the mundane world that I was used to. Her experiences were amazing. She was a true mystic. And she used to visit me every year or two until she went absent for a couple of years at a time. And what intrigued me about her too was her story. She had a story about her life with her husband, Darren. They had the most beautiful fairy tale marriage I've ever heard about. How they loved each other, how he left his job just to be with her continuously, week after week after week. How they never left the house. And when they did, it was she riding on her horse and he running alongside with their 4 dogs following. And just before he died, he was building a workshop for her so she could begin teaching to the public. Her story was about the deepest romance ever conceivable. A love so deep that it almost transcended death. But their relationship ended in tragedy. Either an accident that killed him or suicide. What an utter tragic ending to the most beautiful romance one can think of. And that story left an infinite impression on me. If only I could have a relationship like that. We used to joke with each other. Over the years, we'd done workshops together, been together, spent time together, did walks, etc. And I said to Dia many times, you know, we get along with each other so well. Will you marry me, Dia? And she used to say, Ed, not on your life, not in this lifetime. And we'd both laugh. This last time she came here, once again, the feelings were there, the strong feelings of love for her. And she expressed similar to me. And I said, Dia, will you marry me? And for the first time in 11 years, she said yes. I was stunned. I felt like I was hit by an axe in the head. The story became real. The story of Darren and Dia could be that of Ed and Dia, living that same fairy tale. Then she found a place for rent across from me on the golf course, no more than 200 feet away. It was an utterly cheap rent for this area. And she told me she was trying to get it so she could live nearby. And when she showed me the house that she had found just across the golf cart where she would be living, I felt poleaxed again so deeply. I felt in a daze. I was wandering around. I didn't know what was going on. I felt utterly helpless to do anything. The dream was coming true. The dream of my life was coming true. Needless to say, it didn't. 2 weeks later, she ran off to be with Rajiv in India. But I knew then the utter power of a story. A power so great that it can break your heart in 2 or 3 or 1,000 pieces and fill you with such love, such devotion, such surrender that you could only find with God, like I had found with Janet 8 years before. That's when I knew the power of love, romantic love. Not mother love, not love of God, but love of another. It doesn't have to be of the opposite sex, it can be the same sex. But a love of another human being such that you are able to see God in that human being and fall to your feet in love of that person. And that's been a story I've been telling ever since Janet 8 years ago, but was made so much more powerful by Dia a year ago. And after she left, the story sunk deeper and deeper into me, and I realized that I achieved the love that I had for her and for Janet and for God through a story. The story of her relationship with her husband, Darren, absent the tragic ending. That's one part of how I teach now. The other was a chance comment made to me by Jan Essman, maybe 6 months ago. And I was writing Jan, and I said, Jan, why do you have all of these exercises that require visualizations, pranayama, and fantasy processes? And he said something that really changed everything for me. He said, Shakti is blind. It does not know the difference between fantasy and reality. In other words, a story can enchant Shakti as much as love of God can enchant Shakti. Do you understand? He said further, Shakti follows attention or awareness and intent or will. Those two things are what Shakti follows insofar as a human can have any control over Shakti. It follows what you're aware of, what stories you tell, what fantasies you have, and your intent. What is it that you want to happen? You want to feel more energy in yourself, or do you want to change somebody else in your life some way or another with your intention? Now, intention and awareness is what quantum touch is all about, which was what Dia was all about. And so I knew I had to bring both of these aspects into what I was teaching and what I got from Robert. Because from Robert's point of view, all of this is Maya. And he wasn't interested in changing Maya. He was interested in getting beneath Maya, to getting rid of all language, getting rid of all stories, getting rid of all emotions, and finding what is underneath that. And at the deepest level, it's emptiness. And even deeper than emptiness is nothingness. Emptiness, or the void, at least, is still something that can be experienced. It is of this existential world. But nothingness is what this world comes from and our human existence comes from. But based on my experience with Dia, with Janet, and others, I found something underneath. The Maya, the stories, other than emptiness. Because out of that emptiness came love for Janet, which opened my heart and made me surrender to her and to the life force within her, which gave me my experience of God, the realization of God within me. It's an experience I've talked about many times. So the teachings began to take shape. Shakti, which you could say is the universal energy following you, or Robert calls the power that knows the way, in ways can be convinced or converted by your intentionality, what you want, with the right story. And I began telling stories to move the hearts of listeners in Satsang. Then something else happened a couple months ago, maybe 3 months ago, when I was writing back and forth with David Spira. I recognized that when I talked to David, he said he would take it up with Shakti. And I realized he had a personal relationship with Shakti, and I didn't. I just took Shakti as a presence out there, never thinking of it as an individual or somebody I could have a relationship with. So I developed then a relationship with Shakti, these external forces that are both within me, but also I feel without, that are in the room, in the universe around, swirling, changing energetically. How do I get rid of this? I'm trying to get to the gallery view again. So, I also then paid more attention to how I speak in satsang. Because when I speak in satsang, it's different than everyday life. Something takes over me from the inside. I speak its words. I tell the stories. They're not really mine, but they're inspired from inside. It's like I'm just a vessel for speaking these words. I would, if I had to give this story a meaning or a name, or to fill out the details, I would say it's the God within me, the life force within me that takes over this body as its instrument to speak to you, to speak to the life force in you. Or what Nisargadatta's student, Ramesh, would say, consciousness speaking to consciousness, or my spirit speaking to your spirit, or speaking heart to heart. So what do we have? We have the power of story. How when I speak, it is not me speaking, but Shakti in the form of the life force within me, speaking to the life force within you. And what I try to do during satsang is to give you a sensation or a feeling of how I feel God within me, to make it easier for you someday to find God in yourself, the life force within yourself. And what happens to me during satsang is I feel that life force in myself joining with Shakti outside. And they come together in an embrace of unity and enormous power. And it's a power I felt for the first time when sitting with Dia outside on the golf course that reminded her so much of her husband. And I sat next to her and felt this power growing, incredible power in silence. And now when I speak to you, I feel the life force in me joining Shakti all around in union, a powerful union, a powerful voice that is speaking to your life force, to your heart. I just hope you feel it that way, that you get it that way. So, yesterday, for the first time, I wrote about my new teachings. The teachings that everything is made by mind. Robert says this too, but he doesn't get into the operation that much. He just calls it Maya, or the dreams. There's one kind of dream that we're all submerged in, which I call the mundane world. It's the world of society, convention. It's also the story about atomic physics. It's a story about chemistry and quantum mechanics. And society's stories is about people living separately in their houses, going to work, having jobs which are usually mundane and drain us of energy, And then we go home, have to pay bills, life insurance, health insurance. We get sick. People we know get sick. Our animals get sick and die. And then we repeat it over and over and over again. We go to work, don't care for it that much, come home, do our chores, go to sleep, and that's all. Maybe we spend a lot of time looking into our hearts, trying to find out who we really are. We've heard the story about self-realization, and we wonder what it is, and we go inside to try to find ourselves. But I tell you now, the story I tell is that this life force, as I perceive it in me, is of an utter emptiness, and in that emptiness is a spreading light, a white light, incredible amounts of energy, and a lot of love. And it radiates from my gut, from my mid-chest, and from my heart, outwards to you, in the form of a story, but also my sense of presence, reaching out and touching your sense of presence. I love you all. If you are at all following what I'm saying, you can feel it inside of you. I don't know how you feel it. Some feel it as energies in their heart. Some feel it as energies in their pussies, their dicks, guts. Some feel it as energies flowing from their pelvis straight up into their brain and then exploding above them. But usually there has to be a sexual component, because that's the most powerful source of energy in our body, even more than the gut. The womb and the sexual organs generate a lot of energy, and you can use that to fill out your sense of presence, your magnetic body, your electromagnetic body. That's why I tell Vijay to feel his sexuality, to fill out your body with sexual energy, to awaken all the other chakras, including your heart, your throat, your third eye, and your brain. Follow me as I talk to you. Feel me inside you. Feel my presence inside your heart. Feel my love for you. Feel my desire for you to awaken to the life force inside of you. And that we can walk hand in hand, so to speak, together in the knowledge of God within us. God is within us as light and energy and love. And when you can feel that inside yourself, that is the most important awakening that one can happen. After that kind of awakening, all the rest of your spiritual journey is automatic. You really don't have to do anything after that. It unfolds. Automatically. This is what I try to awaken in you, your heart, and your sexuality, and your love, and your desire to expand and escape the mundane world. Because once God is awakened in you, you're taken to a different dimension. In a sense, you can say there's still suffering in your life, but it doesn't feel the same anymore. It doesn't feel as real as it did before you realized God. After realizing God inside of yourself, you no longer consider yourself a body, but your consciousness, awareness, spirit. So the fear of death is gone. The death of the body can't touch you. It's not that the spirit necessarily lives on after the body dies, but you know that death is death of the body, not of the spirit. Although the spirit may disappear, it's not necessary to reincarnate. You know that the spirit you are is the same life force in every entity in the universe outside of you. 7 billion human beings, trillions of insects, billions of different mammals, billions of different fish, maybe trillions. All these share exactly the same life force that makes you up right now, Maria. The life force that is you is found in every fish, in every cat, in every mouse, in every human. That's why you delight in the happiness of others, because they're like you. They walk in your shoes too. Mark knows this. Stevie knows this. Max knows this. Michael should know this. Michael T, maybe. Enrique, I hope. Michael Hall is here. An old friend. I'm sure Michael knows this as well as I do. Does Eric the Viking know this? Does VJ know this? Does Rolf know this? And Spencer? And Ken? Tell you a little secret. Angela has been coming to our satsangs under an assumed name for the last 3 weeks. I don't think she's here tonight because that assumed name is not here. But she used the name Aster because she said it's the closest thing to a disaster. But Aster did not come tonight. She's not feeling good about where she is. She feels she's lost everything. She's lost our Sangha. She's lost the love we had. And she feels back totally in the mundane world, living like a robot, waking up early, going to work, coming home, eating again, and going to sleep like a robot. Whatever she had, which she had a lot, she had an awakening here. But after she went to France and was with Remco, it's all gone. And she feels totally broken because she had what I'm talking about. And it's all gone. It was taken away from her. She doesn't blame Remco. She blames herself. So, I've been very open with you today. As open as I've ever been. And I want to know whether anybody has any questions, or I should ramble on more, talking about awakening and stories, and how Shakti follows stories, and how you can use that knowledge to take influence on your own life and on others. just as you try to do every day by talking to them or manipulating them. There's a more direct way, directly through Shakti. It can't change everything. You can only have a limited influence on the larger stories that are flowing around you. The story of Trump, or 50 years ago, the story of communism, or 70 years ago, the story of Nazism. These are the big stories. We fit in among them, and our stories intertwine and unfold into those bigger stories and out of those bigger stories. And my story intertwines with Maria's, and with Spencer, and with Karima, and with Michael, and with Max, and Mark. Our stories interact and play with each other. They influence each other. And if we act in a common way, we can begin to influence bigger stories around us. That's what movements do. They get people to have a common intentionality and change Shakti in that way too, by getting a group action for particular goals. And more Shakti adds to what the individuals can do and changes the stories of our life. And the media has a big control over what stories are told. And there's stories about how we can control the media, and they control us. It's all interacting stories. And Shakti is influenced by stories. It can't tell the difference between truth and story. So in a sense, everything, all that appears, the existential world, is stories, is mahyo. And what we do is we play with the stories rather than believe them. And the stories don't have to be done in words. Usually they're done in dance and in the cadence of the voice, and then the gaps between words so that the space is felt. It's told by energies flowing in your heart and the way you express them. It can be told in song. It can be told in poetic language. It can be told with emotions. But the world underneath, the underworld, that is nothing like the world that you see and touch in your everyday life when you're trapped in the mundane world. In the underworld, you're absolutely free. The world there is ever changing, constantly changing energies, constantly changing sensory percepts, constantly changing intentionalities, constantly changing experiences as memories. That world is not fixed. It's ever flowing. It's like a pond, the surface of a pond where the water is slowly moving, and you stick your hand in it and you can make waves. And you can do that with your intentionality. You can do that with your voice. You can do that with your poetry. You influence the story and change how it's perceived both by yourself and by others. You become a magician. And your medium is magic. With one foot in the world, the underworld, of the reality before, we superimpose Maya or stories on top of it, whether it's political stories of Republican politics, Democratic politics, theory of economy, or more local stories about our city and what the government is doing, and even more close studies about certain groups within the city or groups on the internet. Each has a story. Each is trying to manipulate reality, trying to change reality for some ends or another. Very few are out there just feeling it and seeing where the flow goes. And there's that too. You can become just the watcher. And that way you're closest to your truest nature, which is beyond human existence and beyond existence altogether. The witness, God, the noumenal, God, the unmanifest, versus God, the manifest, which you can find inside yourself as light and love and energy. This is the new teachings. You'll hear a lot about it. But it's development from the last visit with Dia, and sensing the power of her story. What David said about having a personal relationship with Shakti outside of himself. And what Jan said is that Shakti follows intentionality and attention. It follows the fantasy process. If you imagine 1,000 petaled lotus over your head, it will create one there for you. And you'll feel it. It can be as real as anything in your life. And Kundalini yogis do this. They create these chakras inside themselves and manipulate the energies in the chakras in order to light up certain parts of their body and their life, or for some particular end. Chaitananda is deeply into magic. He goes to India all the time to study with the Kundalini people there, with the tantric people there, on how to perform both white magic and black magic to influence the lives of his friends for the better. Does this almost every year. Goes to India to find out how to manipulate Shakti, the energies. I hope you understand the immensity of what I'm telling you. That everything you know is a dream. Everything you've considered real is a dream. And that there's a deeper reality underneath your knowledge that you can sink into by sinking your awareness deeper into your body and owning the body and becoming reincarnated into your body. When you're a baby, you're totally incarnated in your body. But as you grow up, you gain a sense of self, a purpose, and ideas of yourself, and you gain a job, a wife, a husband, girlfriends, you get a house, and all these stories are added on. All of these ideas are added onto your life, and they become very crowded, and you lose the original simplicity of your body. But if you let the world alone, so to speak, and re-invade your body, descend into your body so you feel everything. That's why I put such emphasis on sexuality, because sexuality is such a powerful force drawing you into your body. The feeling of sex act, the orgasm that can just shake your whole world becomes so much more intense when you do it with the intention of waking yourself up rather than having just a good time. You can use sexuality to wake yourself and others up. But that is verboten in this society because that's considered non-spiritual and sexual abuse. It's a very complicated world where spirituality comes into contact with moralism, morality, ethics, when really it's all about love. But there's all kinds of constraints put on both love and sex by society, by friends, by family. And you all know this. Now, after that long prelude, are there any questions? Any announcements? Any criticisms?
Hi, Ed.
Yes.
It's Michael T. First, like to say thanks for infusing Shakti within me and the group. I really appreciate that. It's priceless, and I really appreciate that. I have a question in regards to once you liken the spirit and consciousness in people like a leaf, and then eventually that falls and the tree remains.
Yes.
The tree remains. So my question is that once that happens, is there a semblance of awareness that we were once someone else other than just part of the absolute, or does that dissolve as well?
That dissolves. There's nothing left. There's nothing that goes on and reincarnates. There's nothing left over. There may be some residual waves in Shakti as the life comes to an end and dissipates over a period of time. That has an effect, but a diminishing effect over time, but the ripples spread out. But the new leaf that is born, the new body that is born, really has nothing to do with the other one, except as that other one has affected the general story of life. I don't doubt that some people can feel the experiences of others, can empathically feel what they're feeling, and even to the extent of knowing what they're thinking. I've had experiences like that myself, many of them. But you're talking about after death, and in a sense, no one really knows, right? But it's my own understanding based on what I know now, that it's all gone. And it's better that way, that it's all gone, that it's final, that only life itself is universal, not the individual. So glad you could join us, Michael Hall. We've followed each other for years.
I can't stop moving.
Good. You feel the energy in you.
Yeah.
Anybody?
I have some question or comment or whatever it is. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I was paying attention to my Hara. I was feeling very stable. As I explained earlier, like I have been living for years in the head.
Yes.
Bombarded by thoughts left and right. I have absolutely no control over that. For 98% of the time, whatever I do, my attention is in the head, thinking continuously. Became better, but still it is the same. So given that, paying attention to my Hara level, just doing some sort of exercises, as you mentioned, and scanning, body scanning, etc. I felt very stable, very calm in a sense, and that. So now I moved my attention to heart and trying to spend more time there instead of Hara. So it started churning some emotion or some sensation that mind perceived it as some sort of threat and started raising a lot of thoughts and took control over me, and it's going back and forth between the heart and mind thoughts, and I was like totally lost, feeling a depressive, uh, unable to bear kind of sensation. So I stopped that. I understood what's going on, because since the issue I have, it's not really letting me just simply observe that feeling at heart center or the emotion. So I have to leave that, go back to Hara, and just pay attention sometime there and come back to heart, pay attention to, mostly spend more time at Hara and then come back to heart. I'm just doing that. Do you think that's okay? Because
Yes.
when heart is uh, when there is a sensation at heart, mind takes over the control, start threatening, coming up with all sort of imaginary images and
I get you.
and stories.
I get you. I got a special new exercise for you.
Great.
Fill a bucket or a wash pan, like for dishes, with cold water and stick your feet in them. And feel the coldness and the shock of the coldness. And feel your feet being frozen, feeling more and more frozen and insensitive to the touch. Do that for about 5 minutes and then take your feet out and put it in warm water. Have the warm water right next to it. and go back and forth a few times. Maybe just do it 2 times on either side. Do that once a day or every other day, in addition to keeping your attention in your Hara. And you can keep your attention in your Hara by, on the in-breath, following the breath all the way down and feeling your lower abdomen breathing outwards and feeling into that outward expansion of your stomach. Stay away from the heart. Get your attention lower into the Hara, because that's where Zen people keep their attention, in the Hara. That's your power center. There are no emotions in the Hara. When your attention's in your Hara, there are no emotions. But when your attention rises to your heart, that's when you start feeling emotions. So bypass the heart. Do breathing. Feel your lower abdomen expanding when you breathe in and contracting on the way out. Just feel that flow back and forth, and do that with your feet, the coldness. Get your attention to wake up your whole lower body, and masturbate more. Feel your genitals, play with them. Play with your balls. Pour cold water on them, pour warm water on them, use soapy water on them. Develop your sexuality. Use your sexuality to get the energies going in the rest of your body. Awaken your sexuality.
That's, as I mentioned to you earlier, since again, head takes over the control, and I become restless. So I'm sort of moving my attention away from the second chakra level to little up, because of the same issue, that it becomes like restless. That's whole thing. I could combine that. It's easy for me to just get into the second chakra always, anytime. But that I've been just, since I do not have real balance with the head, I'm just taking it easy on second chakra, so I can.
Why? What's the matter with concentrating in the second chakra? What happens?
So I become restless in a sense, that so it is something like, you've how do you put it, I had to involve, I had to, so it's not so I just try to
You're afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it.
it's not
Throw
afraid of
yourself
it.
into sexuality. Throw yourself into sexuality. Look
Sure.
at porno. Watch porno. Feel your balls. Feel your penis. Bring your energy into your pelvis, into your the lower area of your stomach, your pelvis, your ass muscles, everything, your asshole. Feel your pelvis and ground your attention in there. Get it out of your head. You may be agitated when you feel the sexual feelings, but feel the agitation.
It is a little more than that, Ed. What's happening is, it's easy for me to get there, and it just rises up, and then it just goes between mind and second chakra level. It just goes up and down. I become kind of restless, in a sense that, okay, now I have to get it done. I just get there to that point, and I have to, like, it's not, I mean, I don't think you want to just the wife would
You
say,
want to
okay,
feel. You want to be able to feel on the edge of orgasm all the time.
sure, that I need to have control over the thoughts and head. That's what I'm saying.
No. Just feel the feelings. Don't worry about the thoughts. Don't control the thoughts. Just feel your penis. Feel your balls. Feel the sexual excitement you can have by watching porno, whatever it is. Don't worry about what's happening in your brain, what's happening in the thoughts. Get into the feelings. Get into the feelings. And if you can get to the place where you're poised, constantly on the edge of orgasm, then you've really attained something when it comes to moving your attention into the body. Just walk around horny all the time, feeling sexual arousal all the time. and use that sexual arousal to wake up your whole body, to wake up your whole spirit, so that it infuses your spirit, your whole body, your whole spirit is horny, is lusting for orgasm. And with women, they can have multiple orgasms using this and even get more deeply into their bodies and into the spirit within the body. You can use sexuality as a tool. Now you're afraid of it, and this is a long-standing fear of it, that you can get into it, but then it doesn't matter whether it goes back and forth. Feel your body. Own your body. Own your body. You as spirit, own your body. It's a big order for you. But you got to start somewhere. The cold bath on the feet, by the warm bath, to get your attention into the lowest part of your body.
I could do that.
Feeling your sexuality. Pour cold water on your genitals, then warm water. Wake your body up. Shock it wide, like you used to try to do with electricity. I don't advise using a battery on your genitals, because that's called torture. Anybody else?
Hello, Ed.
Hi.
Hi, at the risk of sounding perhaps boastful and extremely repetitious, I just want to say, because I do get repetitious, but all the things you talk about are part of my daily experience. And I don't mean that in a boastful way, but it just is. And like, for example, yesterday, during my break at work, I was meditating and I spent about 15 minutes just pinned by this euphoric, blissful energy. And so I do sense my subtle, I am myself, my Shakti. And how I would describe it is a very, very subtle, yet energized force field suffusing me. White light, yes. It's both extremely subtle and extremely powerful at the same time. I could be very, very calm, yet been hit by like a force field, like a hurricane of bliss, being pinned by bliss, like a moth is pinned to a board. And it can be calm and euphoric, extremely euphoric at the same time. I could feel like I'm still yet moving at tremendous velocity at the same time. And it's just an intensification of what I've always been feeling. It's more regular, access is easier, and it's more ongoing. And it's a daily thing. And I can go beyond that experience of the white light, of the bliss, of the euphoria, into the space around it and just simply be space. So I can do both.
Good.
And
the white light isn't really white. It's more like translucent. But if you have to give a color to it, you give the color light, like a white mist that suffuses the emptiness within. Correct? Is that how you experience it?
Yeah, or even like a silvery golden, something like that. It's very, very subtle, yet very, very, it's like the substratum of what I am. And
yes.
And you said a long time ago in your blog that the love of the I am, once that gets going, there's a pull there. And he says that's the beginning and ending of practice. And now you're saying now you're on automatic. So I really feel like I am at that phase where it is so good that I don't ever want to stop abiding or stop practicing.
Yes.
And the things that I used to enjoy are so much more enjoyable once I get this going and once I get this happening. So my priorities are set to keep this momentum going and keep the practice going.
Ramana said of his death experience as he lay there, these ideas went through his mind lickety-split in a matter of just a few seconds or so, that he realized that when the body dies, he isn't touched, that he's spirit. And he called this spirit self, this awareness of himself as a spiritual being. And he said after that experience, he could never take his attention off of the spirit inside of himself, that it was locked. The gaze, his gaze as the witness was locked on his presence, his self as the energy within, the light within, the feeling within, the power within, and that it fascinated him. And no matter what he was doing, he couldn't take his attention off of his self within, the manifest self within. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, the well-being, the calmness, the focus, the coherence, and the euphoria are so good that I don't want to ever give it up. I don't ever want to leave it. I want it, you know, I just keep abiding in it, and it automatically pulls me in, and it's teaching me. It's the inner guru showing me the way.
There's no difference between you and the inner guru.
Right.
Yes. Anybody else? Michael, anything to say? Michael Hall? Well, how about let's asking Maria. Wake up, Maria. Say something. You're right in the dead center of all my images. All the 25 images, you're right in the center. So I'm calling on you. Say something.
You're talking to me,
Maria.
Yeah. Maria.
You hear me?
Yes.
I have nothing to say. I agreed with you, and it's that. And I hear everybody with that problems, and I don't know, and just here with I don't know.
Maria is in Brazil, and they just elected their own version of Trump, and they're all very happy now in Brazil with their new government.
I hope that I can leave Brazil before I die here.
Yeah. Maria's
Kidding.
officially an American citizen. She was born in the United States and is a slave in Brazil. Okay, you can go away now.
Yes.
We won't put you on the spotlight anymore. Anybody else? Anybody else? Yes, Barty.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I'm a little confused with the thing about free will and predetermination,
Yes.
because my question is, I think like at least 3 masters said that everything is predestined, but you said it's not. So my question is, did they say that to like isolate their devotees from worry, for example, or?
Exactly so. What they did is they wanted to put them at rest and not be concerned about making decisions and pick the right way, the moral way, the ethical way, what is the true way to do, what is the best thing to do, and instead just relax and go from their gut in every situation without worrying about making a decision. It's not the truth, but it's kind of truth to make you relaxed. That's all of Robert's teachings are, to make you relax. The world is illusion. Your problems are illusory. You don't have a body. It means you have nothing to do, just to be, to exist, to live. He tries to take all of these dense decision processes away from you so that you can just live.
Okay, now that we know that, how do we proceed, like, to act and take decisions?
What?
Now that we know that, like, that it was a sort of a lie,
Yes.
how do we,
Right?
like, decide or take decisions?
Did you have a question?
Sorry.
Or
Sorry, make decisions, not take decisions. Like, now that we know that it's a lie, how do we proceed to make decisions, knowing that there is free will? Or
First of all, your question itself is the problem. Who in the world would ever worry about free will or the lack of free will, except somebody caught up in philosophy? See, they catch you with this unproblem, whether you have free will or you don't have free will, and decision-making and non-decision making. Don't worry about it. It's no big thing. Robert was trying to take that away from you. So don't worry about decisions, because then you get wrapped up into morality and ethics and what's the best thing for a spiritual person to do? How would Ramana act in a situation like this? How would Robert act? It doesn't matter. It's all bullshit. Don't get caught by the bullshit.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Ed,
Yes.
all along I feel like Shakti has her own bigger story, independent of all other stories that are
Yes.
born only from her story.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And the story she set perfectly well. Probably Robert and deep into the weeds, they were talking about that that her main story is already there. Whether whatever you do, it doesn't matter. But regardless, you have to do something in order to be part of that Shakti. You have no control over that. You will just go with the emotions, with your surroundings, with whatever the conditioning that you have been with. That would take over and you just do it, regardless of whether someone says that you have a free will or not, I think.
Okay, that is one story, but it's just a story among many. My story is that Shakti does create the overarching story of our lives, but we can influence it by being aware of the world underneath the world that stories create, the conventional world that we all live in, of atomic physics, of regular physics, chemistry, of politics, mundane life, jobs, all that. This is up here, but down here is the ever-changing flux. It's kind of a magical world. There's nothing settled in it. It's always changing, 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 and we superimpose on top of it a matrix that makes sense to us, that gives it form, that gives it life. Now, this matrix can change because the underlying is not touched by this matrix of understanding at all. It's a map. It's a conceptual thing in our head to guide us in our fictional world. And that fictional world can change. Shakti can have a stable fictional world, a stable Maya, but we can change it. We have that option to change when we're aware of both worlds, the matrix, just like Neo. He's aware of the matrix world and of the world underlying that, the real world. Not at the same time, he goes from one to another. But when we're aware of both, we can influence both.
Right. That's allowed by the same Shakti to
Yes.
do whatever you feel like to do it.
Yes.
So basically, we just do what we're supposed to be doing.
No, I'm saying you as an individual are working in cooperation with Shakti. The Shakti in you, the life force in you, works hand in hand with the Shakti in the world. It's a partnership. It's not just Shakti forcing life down our throats. When we know the underlying reality, we're a co-host in the events that unfold. I like to ask Maria questions because she gets so frustrated and flustered when I ask her questions. Any other questions? Anybody else?
Ed,
Yes.
it seems, if I understand how you use Shakti, it seems like the goal is to surrender to this free movement of Shakti through the body and let it move the way it wants to move.
Yeah, sure.
Is that what you're Is that how
Yeah.
you would describe it?
Yes, but what something happens at some point, God or Shakti, whatever you want to call it, becomes satisfied with your spiritual efforts and development. And like Arjuna, Shakti, Krishna shows his complete form, his energetic form of light and energy and love to Arjuna. And that same thing happens in us, and it's called enlightenment, where we realize God inside of ourselves as this energetic being or otherness that is infinite power, infinite light, infinite intelligence, and love is awakened in us, and we feel it as our companion inside. When I first felt it, I experienced it, I called it the other, just like Krishna did. And the other inside of me was 1,000 times more powerful and had more Shakti than I did, more life than I did. And after that, I was always alive. It was like this was my constant companion, God inside of me, as a visible being. Now, that visible being, the God inside of me, at the same time, I could feel Shakti all around me, in the space around me, circulating, talking, speaking, doing things in the environment around. And I found that, like in Satsang, these two come together in me, so that when I speak, I'm speaking, shaking hands. God inside of me is shaking hands with Shakti outside, and I'm sort of in between. The witness, the Ed Musica, is conveying what they're saying to each other.
Yes. It's like what I think it's what I call the presence of God in all things.
Yeah.
Or the mind of Christ, or no mind, or Buddha mind, or this as it is, all of this. But it's a live movement. It's an energetic movement.
It's constantly
fully
moving,
alive.
constantly changing. Yes, exactly.
It's also what I call the other way of knowing.
Yes.
It's because what it knows is so vastly superior to what I know.
Yes.
And when I just move out, so to speak, and let it run my life completely, then miracles happen everywhere.
Yes. We old farts get it, don't we?
It's been a while. It's been a process.
Okay. I've wasted your time enough. Any last questions before I have a bagel? I see I have my two swamis here, Max and Michael, wearing the saffron robes like I am today. What a coincidence. I love you all. Seek that life force inside of yourself. Fall in love with somebody else. Feel the life force in whoever you fall in love with. Drop to their feet, touch their feet, kiss their feet, hold their feet, and tell them how much you love them and how you're totally surrendered to their well-being. And will they allow this? God will give you whatever you want then, because you've created space inside of yourself for God by surrendering yourself to another. Bye-bye. I love you all. I love you all. Feel that. I'm not bullshitting you. I love you all. You're my family. Bye-bye. Next week, same time.